Being limitless is knowing your success and your growth are built on a radical belief in yourself. Limitless is honoring your purpose, your health, and impact above all else. Limitless is never playing small because the more alive you feel in your life, the more growth and success you attract. Hi, my name is Jamie Ratermann, and I am a holistic business coach, meaning I am just as invested in growing your health as I am in growing your wealth. With 11 plus years in brand and social media marketing, I help rebellious entrepreneurs master marketing, embody leadership, and say fuck it to the hustle. This show is here to encourage you to become more radically aware of your self-imposed limits, to break free of your shoulds, and to expand your brand into a movement led by you. Hello, lovelies. This interview has been a day in waiting. I cannot wait to share this person who has become so fucking special to me, but also to share how amazing she is, what she does to help people, and also how she's built her business. But today we're going to be leaning into things that I don't think are shared enough in the health industry about really understanding how your body works, how to process stress, how to be able to tune into what our nervous system can tell us. So today we have Natalie on the podcast. Natalie, I cannot wait for you to share your story, but let me tell you about how I have fallen in love with Natalie. So Natalie and I knew each other through a mastermind first, but became I feel like I just want to go for it. We became like romantic lovers when we got to Guatemala. We literally had that once in a lifetime kind of connection to that. Her and I are really strong friends now because we just understand things. Like we have the ability to know that, oh my gosh, life is really exciting, but can be hard in the process. So spending 5 days in a tree house in Guatemala, we got to really get to know each other. But Natalie is a somatic coach and teacher. She also loves some good essential oils, which I currently have steeping in the background right now. Lemongrass today. Lemongrass nice. is the vibe today. But she is here to really help people to work through, any of those hard things that like really prevent us from being our full selves. Now, that is just the beginning. Natalie, welcome to the Limitless podcast. I'm so excited to finally have you here.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. I'm so honored to be invited and really excited to share how this sense of embodiment and feeling comfortable in our own skin can really impact us as entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah. Did I embarrass you by saying that we're lovers?
No.
Oh my God. Natalie, go ahead and tell us. Let's share with us a little bit about kind of your journey to be the entrepreneur that you are now.
Oh man, that's a big question. But I would say that I knew I wanted to be a therapist when I turned 12. I had a therapist for 10 years from the age of 12 until I had the same therapist for 10 years. I've been in therapy pretty much since then, but that therapist really played a pivotal role in my life. In my childhood, it was one of the few places that I felt safe. That office and the beach were like my places of refuge. And I remember looking at him and being like, I think I could do that. Like, I feel like I want to give this back. And I think that was just the spark of me really realizing that my purpose was to give back what's helped me the most and to be of service in the ways that have supported my healing the most. And the one thing that impacted me most about this particular therapist is every time I would mess up, he would look at me and he would say, "This is going to make you a better therapist." And it was never a question of whether I could or couldn't do what I wanted to do. It was just, this is going to make you better. This is going to make you better. This is going to make you better. And that was enough to keep me going through some of the darkest times of my life, where I was addicted to really hard drugs. I was struggling in a lot of ways. I lost my mom to terminal cancer. All these things were happening in my life. And even through all of that, I didn't I didn't know entrepreneurship was on the table for me. I just knew that I wanted to help people. I wanted to be a therapist. And so eventually I went back to school and I did what helped me the most. I worked in the addiction field. I worked with people trying to get sober, and found myself in a place where I was wanting to embrace, well, I had to get sober. At the end of my BA, I had to get sober, and I had to make that choice to get help again for myself, and went to treatment. That was the first big investment I ever made in myself, was deciding that I needed more time in treatment and I wasn't ready to go home. And I made a major investment in myself and had no idea if it was actually going to be worth it. And it was. I got out of treatment. I started a master's program in clinical psychology 3 months later. I finished that, went into the addiction field, and really pictured myself in agency work for a long time. I was like, well, I'm young. I'm going to do the hard stuff while I'm young, and then the hard stuff became really hard and my nervous system ended up being shot and my body was screaming at me. And my stepmom then also was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And that was the final push for me to say, okay, I need to do something different. I need to change this pattern of just completely burning myself out. And, Gabor Mate talks about this a lot, about how when we're traumatized as children, a lot of times it can show up in addictions, right? Which has been true for me. I've been through the addiction cycle a few times in my life. But it also shows up in, I'm going to work so hard that they'll need me, right? I'm going to make people need me. And this was the moment about 2 years ago now where I decided it's time to change. I've got to change my life. And so the next thing was private practice. And then that opened me up to a coaching world that I had no idea was there. And
it's
that
a wild ride over here.
And then it just kept, I like to reflect. When I reflect on it, what I really come to is these little sparks of my intuition where something inside of me went, there's something here for me. And I just followed that pretty blindly, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm just going to go in this direction because this is what feels right. And I'm just going to keep doing that. And then here I am. I've opened my business, which is Whole Witch Wellness. I provide somatic coaching. I help people feel really safe and at home in their bodies, because when we feel that way, that ripples out into the rest of our lives, into our work, into our relationships, into our ability to express ourselves authentically. And there's so much healing that happens there. And so I still practice psychotherapy with a group, and I provide somatic coaching, and I have group programs that I adore, and I love essential oils and have a business with Young Living as well. And I've just really been able to, my life went to this place beyond my wildest dreams. I mean, this was not, what I'm doing now was not something I even pictured for myself 4 years ago. So it's like, what I've come to realize is I can have these dreams and I can have visions for myself, and ultimately following the nudge is what's gotten me where I am today.
Oh my gosh. I have so much to dig into. It's all of the things. So I want to dig into just how much adversity you've overcome and how it informs who you are and how it makes you just, limitless. I can't not say it, like how amazing and all the ways that you can help others. But in short, where you're at right now with your business, how do you help people?
I help people by introducing them to the ways in which somatic awareness can really change the way that they're trying to heal themselves. I've always believed since the beginning that my clients are the healers. You could call me a healer, sure, but you're the one doing the healing, not me. I'm just a conduit for the magic that already exists within my clients. And so what I found is that having my body become my safest place was what really, really saved my life in a lot of ways, was realizing that the safety that I was seeking outside of myself, I could cultivate within myself. And then that gives you the opportunity to have all sorts of other things that are beyond what we can even imagine for ourselves. And so looking at healing from a perspective of, you're the one and my clients are the ones in charge. And so I help people take leadership of their healing through the body, and take leadership of the way that they choose to engage in their choices in their life, and all those things that ripple out once we start to heal ourselves.
Oh, I love this. I love this so much. I think like, well, I made the jokingly talking about how the coaching industry is a wild ride, but really this idea of being in service to others and like wanting to support 1, 5, however many people you might have in a group is really understanding that we grow in community. We grow in, like, even to sometimes when I have a client who will say like, you just see so much for me. And I'm like, you don't see it for you. Like having somebody who is not inside your head, who just sees your capabilities and is able to, care for you in different settings. But I think with what you were sharing is that, like, even your first therapist at 12, when you were talking about that, it was this person who made an impact on you. And yeah, you had all of the skill, all of the magic within you, but this person was going like, oh, you've got you. So I think I talk so much about like make an impact in your business. And I think there's a side of it where like people think like, oh, I'm making an impact on the whole damn world. This therapist for you is somebody who helped you create all, aside from working through, like you said, dark times when you were younger, has also formed your destination of how you want to make an impact for others going forward. Mm-hmm. That's like that beautiful ripple effect, mm-hmm. which I think is a side of, you've now helped probably, I'm going to assume in your career, you've helped over 100 people. So how would you say that, like, just that early experience, like, because I think like, going to a therapist at 12, not everyone goes that early, but like how would you say that early relationship with your therapist is like something that continues to kind of ring in your ear as an entrepreneur now helping others?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, even sometimes in my line of work, when you're trying to help people heal themselves, essentially, sometimes it's easy to get caught up in how hard and how tumultuous that work can be. And bringing myself back to those moments of just remembering that, like, our job is to create safe spaces for people. There's a quote that I really fell in love with recently. It was like, my love language is creating spaces where you can take your armor off.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. And so that's what he gave me. And I didn't know, I didn't have anywhere else to experience that at the time. And if that wasn't there, then who knows where I would have ended up? Who knows? Because like you said before, I had this person who, even when I didn't believe in myself, was like, this is going to make you better. I know you can't see that right now, but this is going to make you better. And it's true. It's true. All of those things that happened, that I've done, that happened to me, all have informed the way that I support people. And when you're an early therapist, you're so worried that, grad school kind of scares you into, you don't have the wrong reaction to someone, or I don't want to, you don't want to wince, because wincing is not what people are looking for. That doesn't help create a safe space. Right. And I think my experiences and the depth and the darkness of my experiences give me that kind of unmatched ability to not wince, because I've seen these things I've seen such dark things for myself that helps me. It helps me when I'm helping other people.
Totally. Like taking you, I think, not everyone has to take the path of experiencing all of the things, but you've right. You've taken off the veil of judgment, because you're like, been there. Yeah. And I think they're like not to get in too much marketing speak, when people talk about ideal clients, like it's usually like it's somebody that, like, a previous chapter of you, like it's a previous version of you that you want to help get to a place faster. So I think I know you said you were comfortable. So can we, like, we can shine some light on these dark times. So you said that you had some addictions when you were younger. And I know this was when you were quite young. It was like, when did you first start getting into drugs and different things like that?
Yeah, I was about 17 when I started really doing, I mean, I dabbled when I was younger than that, for sure. Probably started around the age of 15 or 14, but I was addicted to heroin by the time I was 18 years old. And I had been in a really horrible car accident, and I was on bed rest and all sorts of meds, and it wasn't just the car accident and the prescriptions. It was, I was in a world where that was normal, where heroin use was normal, and it was everywhere. And so my circumstances plus my environment kind of, plus my trauma, was a recipe for really diving into some dark, heavy drug use. And so I went to treatment for the first time when I was 18, 19. And, I got sober, and that worked out for a little while. And then I wasn't sober anymore. I never went back to heroin or Xanax. Those were two that were really, really hard for me. It's been about 15 years since I've done anything like that. But I definitely slipped back into an addiction cycle about 6 years later, when like I said, I went to treatment when I was fresh out of my bachelor's. But yeah, that was the first time.
It was so interesting because when I met Natalie, and I was like saying, oh, so like, what, tell me what these dark times were like. I was trying to relate in some way from when I, like, because like me, my Midwest self was like, there was a lot of drinking when I was in high school. And she's like, well, I hear you're drinking, and let me trump you with some hair, like heroin addiction, all these things. And I think, like, so, when I met Natalie, she is the most grounding. She is the most centered. She is the most, just like one of the best listeners. So whenever, if we were ever, if someone would tell me, oh, this person got over drug rehab, choose which one it is, I would never choose Natalie, for the fact that, like, I think a side of this is that you've done so much of that healing work for yourself, that it's like this backstory. Two things come up for me whenever you were willing to share these with me, and like, wow, she's fucking powerful. Like, how amazing that she did these things, and that just how potent it is that you can come out on the other side of what went on. So I think, you've shared with me that many of the people that you were friends with back then, some of them aren't currently around, and that even part of what you were talking about in that process is that, like you were saying, environment and how this stuff was normal, and all of the above, is that for you to do your healing, it was about changing all of those things, like having different support, the getting off of that, all of those pieces. So can you kind of share a little bit about, like, one, like, it was a long process for you to get over that addiction, and clearly it's not on you, because I'm sure I've never done them, but I'm sure those have got to be some of the hardest things to, remove yourself from friend groups and put yourself in those scenarios. But what do you think was like some of the biggest keys when you were trying to really make a complete shift in the way you lived your life?
Yeah. I think being open to experience, that would be being open to options. There are truly endless options for us to heal in the world. If we open ourselves up to experience, then we might have a million things that don't stick, but we might have two that do. And that could be enough to sustain you until you get to the next thing that will. Right. And so for me, that first step into treatment, I had somebody look at me in the face and be like, I'm going to tell you what you should do, what I think you should do, and you can do whatever you want. And I think you should get off Suboxone, which was, detox med that is equally as difficult to detox from as heroin is. I think you should get off it now. I think you should do these things. I think you should start this group. And I was like, okay. I was 19, I was like, okay, sure. There was enough in me that knew that I didn't want to do that anymore. And so if I don't know what I'm going to do, then why not listen to this guy who's also been addicted to heroin and is telling me that this would be a good idea. And so there I went. I just trusted it. And I tried all the things, I did AA, I did NA, I did the steps. I went all the way through the program. I I just kept opening myself up to options, and a lot of the things that I did when I was 19, I don't do at all anymore. In fact, my recovery is so far different from what it looked like the first time I tried. I was, you know, leaning into Christianity at the time. I don't follow any sort of organized religion anymore. I don't participate in AA. I think that place saves a lot of people's lives, and it's not what resonates with me right now. And so it's keeping myself open to experience, and also acknowledging that our recovery or healing or even entrepreneurship, right? Like, it's all evolving. And if we get rigid and this is what's worked for me, I have to keep doing this, then we lose the opportunity to be open to experience, and we can lose so much if we keep ourselves in that box. And so just continuing to try things, and kind of like that, sometimes it feels like I'm throwing spaghetti at the wall, you know, and it's like, okay, that's fine. And then just holding on to what sticks. And then this toolbox, this like metaphorical toolbox, just gets bigger and bigger and bigger over time. And now I have this giant toolbox, right? And I'm like, oh, this thing that I did a few years ago really felt good. I wonder if that would feel good again now. Let me try that, you know, like this type of breath work, or this type of yoga, or this type of meditation, or whatever it is that is coming up.
Oh, I love this. I think they're like lifelong open-mindedness, lifelong studentship, or lifelong learning is really, I think, a big part of this. And also like understanding like it was vulnerable, it was trusting that like for you in those scenarios, but that's also what happens as an entrepreneur, being able to go like, I want to try something I've never done before. I might fall on my face, but I want to try it anyway because it's worth it. Like this is life, is of being able to try new things. And I think, you know, putting this into context for like specifically with entrepreneurship is that sometimes people will just sit in uncertainty and going like, I could do it this way, I could do it that way, I could try that. But which one do I do? I don't know like how I should do this. And I think there's a side of how beautiful trial and error gets to be when you take the teeth out of it. Like it's like if there's an error, it's a lesson, and we adjust. And I think everything you're sharing there is like is amazing. So I like this, just like I love to reiterate Natalie's story, for I still just like look at you in like wonderment, going like, wow, this is like, I just love all of what this can be for others, and like how much passion comes in that. Because I assume most of the times when you're working with clients and working with your therapy patients, it's a lot to do with like, oh, okay, I'm like pretty much talking to a previous version of myself, and I can't wait to help them get to their next place. So I love your story, but I'm just also, the love is of your strength. The love is of your strength, and kind of how you walk through it. Cause I'm sure we could keep talking about this, but it's more about the fact that like there were times and you just kept going. Like that's like, it wasn't always rainbows, clearly.
Yeah.
And then you're coming out on the other side, me just telling, and I'm just giving my seal of approval, the most grounded, the most open, the most like just beautiful being. So am I flirting with Natalie? Either way, let's leave it. So now that you have been helping people, and you made the transition, you still do therapy, but you've made the transition into coaching specifically. So like, why did you want to make that switch into coaching? And then why do you feel that like somatic practices are so important, especially now?
Yeah. Well, I think many of us have never been so well, as a collective, I would say, well, collectively at the same time, we've never been more disconnected from our bodies, right? This like pandemic is such a reason and a fair reason to be disconnected from our bodies, right? We've been so scared of illness and so scared of all these things. And so connecting to ourselves through that avenue is actually what's going to help the most, even though it feels the scariest, right? And so in terms of like our times, I just think that people are really waking up to being aware of their body and the sensations that are present because they have messages. And that's how we can connect and how we can heal and how we can become aware of what's really going on. And I also think, there's just a lot of increasing awareness with people like Bessel van der Kolk and Gabor Mate and all these people who have started to make mindfulness and being aware of the body more mainstream. And so now we have an opportunity. To say, wow, like I can't tell you how many people come to work with me and they're like, I read The Body Keeps the Score. And I'm like, okay, well, let's pause for a moment, because that's a really, that book is written for clinicians. And so a lot of people read it. And I mean, I read it and I was triggered, like, and I'm a clinician, and that book changed the course of my career. And it's also, it's a lot to digest. And so really there's a few reasons I got into the coaching industry. One is that I wanted to expand my impact. I wanted to be able to impact more people than just in the state of California. I also wanted a place where I could really do things what I felt like was my own way. I'm an associate therapist, which means I'm not licensed yet. I'm about 200 hours away out of 3,000 to being licensed, but it still means that I work under a supervisor. And I really wanted a space where I could work with people who wanted that, who wanted to heal and wanted to do it through the body, with really like, this is what I'm coming to you for. And, the coaching space and the therapy space are not, they're similar, but they're not the same. And so coaching has really given me an opportunity to serve people in a way that feels lighter, for lack of a better term, that feels a bit more creative sometimes, in terms of being able to use my education, but also use so much of my life experience and so much of my healing experience and my connection to nature and my connection to spiritual practices and even essential oils, like really just being able to have all the doors be open. And so starting to do coaching was really to help people in that way. And then it kind of just spun out into Emotional Alchemy, which is my 8-week group program. And the most mystical witchy container in the world, connecting to nature and all these things, and herbalism and EFT tapping, and really exposing people to the options that are out there for you to heal yourself. So that you can walk away with that empowered sense of like, okay, these are the tools I was exposed to. This is what I want to do for myself. And this is what I'm going to take with me, and really make it authentic to yourself, because that's what's going to make it sustainable.
I love this. I absolutely love this. So yeah, I think there's a couple of things that, like, for me, like, so Natalie's not so Natalie is a previous client of mine. She did marketing mastery with me, which was, well, maybe we'll talk about a little later, but I think one of the things I love most is that you're not my first, and I hope not my last therapist who has decided to add a coaching realm within their business. I think what I take away from it is that there's a bit of red tape, and there's also you don't have the same ability as a therapist to use personal experience to help someone, to guide someone through it. And then in general, like, bringing these other practices that Natalie's sharing is like, it depends on your supervisor if you can really start to bring in these new modalities and that type of thing. So for me, the way in which I just see, like, my clients who are therapists that become coaches, they just get to be able to, like, share the more personal experiences to be able to help them be like, okay, let my story be the teacher here, and can open that door. So I love that. Clearly Natalie has that fantastic story to be able to help with how, like, all of these practices that she's tried can work through it. Now, the second thing I love is, like, let's just get into what's like somatic practices. For the record, when I decided to get certified as a health coach, my DMs were full of, are you stopping doing business coaching? Are you not doing marketing? Like, how are you going to combine these two things? Like, what the heck is going on? And I think for anybody who isn't, isn't in our fields or even in our general community that we talk about this stuff all of the time, is that we all just think that the way in which to take care of our body is food, workout, and sleep, because I'm not even going to put meditation there, because I believe everyone knows about meditation, but you know, how many people actually use it? Maybe not. But I just think like the more I got into health, the more that just opened and continued to open into like, oh wait, I have a brain, I have a nervous system, I have like your skin is your biggest organ. Like there's so many things of us actually taking care of ourselves. And I don't like in this, as I'm saying this, I don't find it overwhelming, but the idea is that there's so many practices that we're not thinking of. Now with like, you know, somatic healing, it's literally like our nervous system is our mind doesn't end in our head. It's all over our body in different ways. Like it's absolutely being able to understand, like we hold on to things in our nervous system. And I would absolutely say, I wish I had this statistic in front of me. Most of our disease, the way we like pass on in life, usually there's a huge stress component. Like it might result in heart disease, but stress got you there. So like being able to really alchemize stress and how that works with the body, I think is so important here. But give us a bit of a rundown. I know what I would say, but like give us a little bit of a rundown of like, what is like, how can we utilize the nervous system? I know there's parasympathetic and sympathetic, like, of course, I know how to utilize both of those, but like, how would you describe it to somebody who has never thought of this before?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. There's so many things. My brain is like, this is the beauty of chatting with you. So for the coaching and the therapy piece too, I just wanted to add, like, a lot of therapists are like, my specialties in therapy are addiction, trauma, PTSD, and anxiety. Like that's big work to do. And I think a lot of therapists like me who are specialized in trauma and things like that are turning to coaching to be able to serve in a way that's a little more lighthearted as well. And like, lighthearted might not be the right word, because trauma is going to come up no matter what container your healing container you're in, but really being able to provide a space that can bridge that like trauma informed space for people. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of therapists turning to coaching as well, because they want to have a greater impact and they want to be able to do this type of work where it's more goal oriented. It's more, okay, this is what happened, but how are we going to use that to inform where we're going? So that piece feels really, that's just given me such a beautiful opportunity. Right. And then when we're talking about the nervous system, like the like funny yoga tag that I hear a lot in the yoga community is the issues are in the tissues. Right. And like it's funny.
Write that down.
I know I'd been trained in doing somatics for a while before I even heard that, but I tend to work with a lot of yogis and things like that, because they already know the value and they're looking for like a different way to tap into that body awareness experience. So I've always loved that piece. But we store memory in our bodies. We store images and thoughts and all sorts of things. And when we're looking at the nervous system, we have so many different components, first of all, to our nervous system. Our nervous system is a very complicated piece, but when we're talking about our emotional experiences, we really want to look at the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, which are part of the autonomic nervous system. And the parasympathetic and the sympathetic are what give us our ability to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That would be the sympathetic nervous system. So the stress response, the trauma response, I have to run, I have to save my life.
I found that I'm a fawner. I'm a fawner on a regular basis instead of
the obsessive caregiving is what it kind of presents like, is like I'm going to take my inward and make it outward by caring for other people, right? See that a lot in caretakers. And so we have
in this way, like how would you see, like how, like what parts of stress or what parts of things that you do for your body would really kind of fall in the sympathetic nervous system versus what would fall under the parasympathetic?
Yeah. So the sympathetic nervous system is really, really useful, right? It's there to save our lives. And the tricky thing about the nervous system is that when your brain is perceiving a threat, it doesn't it perceives many things as threats, not just a bear. Right. But our body can have the response as if we're running from a bear. And that's great. It's actually, you
Your
know,
deadlines might feel like a bear is chasing you, or the launch cycle, or all, like, I think like that's what,
yeah,
now that we don't have the threat of living in the wilderness, it's now turned into things. And like, I think like when we're talking about fight or flight, it can be like the worry of a relationship not working out, or that you angered somebody. It can also be the fact that you're putting so much pressure on yourself to hit a certain deadline or a certain
yeah,
goal, that type of side of
yeah.
things. Just to
10
give
people.
context, just to give
Yeah. 10 people not reaching out the first 3 days of your launch, right? We all know that one. That's a fun one. And so that can throw, I mean, that's thrown me into a freeze response for sure. I'm just not going to post anything. I'm not going to do anything, right? Because it's safer over here, right? And so that what happens when the sympathetic nervous system is brought online is we get things like adrenaline and cortisol, and those are really great hormones. Those are really healthy. We need those hormones, but they get a bad rap because if we have them running all the time, then it starts to wreak havoc on the body, right? Those things are great in moderation. We don't want them running all the time. So let's say you're in a 6-week launch and nobody's reached out for the first 3 weeks, and you've got that going, that sympathetic nervous system kicked on the whole time. Well, then how are you going to get through the next 3 weeks of your launch? You're going to be pretty tired. You're going to be frozen. You're going to go into one of those stress responses. It's going to be really hard to show up. And so if we're just going to stick with that example, we want to combine the activation of the sympathetic nervous system, which happens when we're motivated, when we're driven, when we're ready, when we're launching, when we're doing all the things, with rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, right? We want a balance between the two. And it's when we don't have a balance between the two that we run ourselves dry, that we become burned out, that we close the launch altogether, or we make the rash decision, right? Or whatever that looks like for you. And so finding those practices that are going to bring your parasympathetic nervous system online, also known as rest and digest. This is the part of your nervous system that says, okay, we're safe. We can relax. We can kick back. We can enjoy some oils. We can eat a nice meal. It's going to be okay, right? This is like where we get to rest and relax. So we want to balance the two.
Absolutely. I love this idea, for the fact that I don't think people know how to rest. I honestly don't. I don't think I did when I was in my corporate life. Is that like we don't turn off the brain that's like, okay, I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this next, and I'll do this next. And like, it's literally like us just not using a really strong, amazing system in our body to be able to be our best selves, to see how it's what comes to mind, limitless we are in this process of being able to, like, okay, my body actually has my back, but I have to activate that side of it. So I think, at least for me, some of my first ways of understanding the parasympathetic nervous system in action, because I clearly would read about it but never fully understood it, is that I was once in a yin yoga class, and we were doing a long stretch of like in the hip area, and half the class started crying, like just was like full on crying. And for anyone who's like, okay, whatever, like, it's usually when you hit a certain zone when you're stretching or with those things, is that it's like you releasing stress or a part of trauma. I know that Natalie can talk more directly to this, but then that turned from yin yoga, and yin yoga is more of a very slow, long stretch. It's not us jumping into warrior poses and down dogs all the time. It's like we sit in a hard stretch for a long time. That was one place. Breath work was the next one.
Yep.
Like an hour of like hiss breaths, the hour of like all of that. And I would leave, and I would leave those sessions, and like my calves would be like sweating. I was like, what's going on here? This is the weirdest, like, and I would feel like I was floating. And it's like from breathing in a certain way. And then even too, I of course bring all of that into sprints, different things, going like, okay, we know our sympathetic is high, let's bring it down using parasympathetic. So I feel like in general, we know how to turn on the sympathetic nervous system in most cases. Like, just put pressure on yourself, feel how that can feel. What would you say would be like two important practices for someone who's new to this to start to, encourage more rest and digest?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was definitely known as the crier in my yoga class for a good like 8 months. I went to the same yoga class every week and I would cry every single week. Definitely
It was
been
your
there.
crying corner. It was like, I'm here to release
My
the things
body's
that
got
I
some
don't
stuff to let
realize I
go
need to
of.
cry about. I also do this too. If I ever have a crying client, I'm like, let it out.
Yeah.
Let
I'm
it
here
out.
for it.
It's your literally your nervous system saying it's time. Leave. It's going to leave from your eyes today.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, there's so many different ways that we can activate the parasympathetic. I think some of the most simple would be like the 4-7-8 breath that you use in the content sprints, right? That practice of inhaling for 4 through the nose and then holding for 7 and then releasing out of the mouth through for 8, that really forces you to kick. And you can feel it when you do that breath 3 times, you can feel your parasympathetic nervous system come online. And so that's a really simple way. You can also, the box breath is like the similar one too, which is 4, 5, 6, like right, 4, 5, 4, 5, just in and out. That will do something very similar. One that I think people don't know as much about is laying with your back flat on the ground and your legs up at a 90-degree angle. So like on a couch, not where you're holding your legs up yourself, where they're being held by something like a couch or a bed or something like that. Lay there for about 3 to 5 minutes and your parasympathetic nervous system will kick on its own. So that's one for people that don't want to go to the breath. Some people have, whether it's like asthma or some reason that they don't want to go directly to the breath or holding the breath. The 90-degree legs can be a really helpful one as well.
Oh, I love that. I always heard about the legs thing that to do it before you go to bed, like it'll help you fall asleep. But now I realize, that it's the parasympathetic nervous system. So, what would you say, I feel like we talked a little bit about it, like therapy versus coaching too, is that like they're like, some of the stuff that you can, like when it might make sense to go to therapy, would be like, the diagnosed mental health needs, right? Versus for most of us, like or for a majority of us, it's just like, how do we manage day-to-day stressors? How do we manage kind of living that, life that we want to live here and without like feeling like burnt out. I think burnout and all of that has a lot to do with not only like being overworked, but also how we come down for the day. So what do you feel like are some common ailments that maybe people seek, pills for, maybe they decide to go drink for, maybe they just seek like, absolutely vegging out on the couch because they want to be away from the world. Like how, these are the things I think of, like the people that don't have those like nervous system supports for them. Like what kind of common ailments do you think are out there now that really could just be fixed by knowing your body better?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is just general stress management and knowing how that shows up in your body. So there's so many different ways that stress can show up in our bodies that we aren't even necessarily aware of, right? Like for me, my jaw will pop in and out when I eat if I'm really stressed out because I'm holding stress and I'm holding tension. And so when I try to eat, my jaw's like, and it pops in and out. And so whenever that happens, I'm like, oh, okay. Thank you. I'll take that as a sign. And so there's so many things like that can happen, that we can really, if we're aware of it happening. Teeth grinding is another one, for women, like hip pain. So much of our stress is in our hips. And so, simply being aware of how these things are showing up in your body, like hip pain or like the jaw tension or teeth grinding. And then being able to say like, oh, wow, I need to support myself. And there's all sorts of ways that our body expresses that. And I think it's so different for everyone. And, so that's the first piece that comes to mind in terms of ailments.
I always also think like neck pain,
Yes,
neck
and shoulders.
like, even if I'm like in a middle of a really strong flow, I'm getting through a lot of creative work, it'll be like, I realize that my shoulders are here and I'll just like take it like, oh, right, that's happening. Like, so just realizing that like sometimes we're starting to tense up and we don't realize that we are. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, when we can just learn what kind of signals our body is sending and just like even tend to it in the most minor of ways throughout the day, that's going to have such a lasting impact. Like noticing that I was sitting here with my shoulders hunched over because I'm so like in it with you, right? And taking a second to just pull back and be like, okay, my upper back is hurting a little bit, just move around, we keep ourselves so, when we're holding tension, we keep ourselves so tight in the same position. And we can do that for hours and hours and hours at the desk or in the office or whatever. And so even just noticing, I'm thirsty, I need some water right now. I'm, like these things, that listening to the cues that our body is giving us, and then just being able, it's like, listen, respond, receive, listen, respond, receive, listen, respond, receive, all throughout the day.
So much, like the little check-ins, take the breaks, think about those things. I love it. Oh my gosh. Can we add another hour to this podcast? Yes. So clearly, I love everything that Natalie does. I want everyone to learn about these things. So I love everything you're doing. So it was such a delight for you to be able to join one of my programs, for you to be able to use marketing to build up all the things you want to do. So I just wanted to lean in and ask, like, how do you feel about, like, you are such an expert in all of these things. How did it, like, what was one thing you loved about joining Marketing Mastery to be able to build this business that you have now?
Yeah, I think Marketing Mastery was such a big pivotal part of me and my business, and really taking ownership of my voice and really being able to express myself in, when you're in grad school and you're becoming there's a lot of like, well, you're not ready and you're not an expert and you're not this and you're not that. And so, being that really gave me the space in the container to not only get really tangible things done, like my website and like, strategy and systems and things like that, but also giving me some more confidence to just say like, hey, I'm really good. I'm really, really good at what I do. And like,
for everyone who gets to watch the YouTube video, like, yeah, you fucking are. My face is weird over here. Like,
yes. And I love what I do. And what I do is unique. And even with the somatics and the oils, right. And the using our sense of smell as a way to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, and how I kind of merge nature and somatics together. Marketing Mastery gave me the opportunity to really just run with what I wanted, what I really wanted this to look like for myself. And then also, of course, a space to explore the language, right? Now I look at my website and I'm like, yeah, that's right. That is correct information about what I do. It feels like it represents me and my work. And so all of those things have been such a wonderful, wonderful gift that just keeps on giving to my business and to people that are curious about what I do, and giving them a space to look at my website and not have to talk to me. Right. I'm a big advocate for that.
The doors are wide open, baby. The doors are wide open.
Yeah. Yeah. And then people can decide, right, if they have that ping of their intuition, that's like, okay, this looks like it could be the space for me. Then they can reach out and we can talk and all that stuff. It's such a beautiful thing.
I love it. Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing is that, yeah, Natalie, you have a secret sauce, and we were able to take advantage of that, which is exactly what it's all about, being able to identify what that is. And I'm invested in seeing how big and your impact can be, and I think that's what's really fun about the type of programs and being able to have somebody I know so well come in, but also I love just seeing your trust and confidence that came after, which is so beautiful. Yeah. Well, and little secret is that Natalie absolutely was like, just her reaction once she launched her homepage and how amazing it felt. I was like, well, it's time for an entire program to do your entire website. So Natalie was my inspiration to be like, let's build this out, because clearly I want to see people as excited as Natalie is and how they build their site. So I appreciate you giving you that shout out here. So before we hop off today, because I guarantee there's going to have to be a part 2 because there's so much more.
Seriously.
What would you say, like, what does it mean for you to be limitless?
It means a lot of things, but the first things that come to mind is circling back to keeping myself open to experience and really using, like, practicing what I preach to keep myself out of the like debilitating anxiety that can get in the way of launching the thing or doing the website or, putting myself out there in a way that feels so edgy and feels so it's definitely different than what I've seen other therapists do. And so really just making sure that I'm staying present in my body and so that I can keep expressing myself authentically and helping others do the same and listening to my intuition and helping others do the same, because those are the things that have led me here. And so being limitless would be expressing myself authentically and continuing to listen to my intuition and trusting that it's all going to work out.
Because it is. Natalie, thank you so much for joining us today. How can people get in contact with you? Tell us all about how they can get to know you better.
Yes, absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at Whole Witch Wellness. You can also find me at www.wholewitchwellness.com, where you can check out my beautifully done website, all thanks to Jamie and the skills that she gave me. And yeah, I have Emotional Alchemy coming up at the end of October, which is my 8-week group transformation experience rooted in somatic healing, nourishment, and expression, all about helping you move past the limitations of anxiety and connect to nature and embody your unique magic. So those are the things that are coming up. And yeah, you can come send me a DM on Instagram or check out my website.
I love it. Amazing. We'll make sure to pop all of those in the show notes. I also feel like we'll put the body holds the score, some of those links in there too, because we shared a lot. I wrote some of the people down, because I don't know all the people that you mentioned. So we'll make sure that the show notes are chock full if anyone's interested in really diving in further, but clearly Natalie can help you directly with many of these things. But Natalie, thank you so much for your openness, your vulnerability. I'm so happy that we finally got you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to be here, and I'm so grateful for you and the work that you do in the world, and it's wonderful to chat with you always. Oh
my gosh, we're in love. Bye guys.
Bye.